That's another reason why I try to talk slow, because if I try to talk, normally, I might not get my word out. And I never lost the fact of what I wanted to say. It was
Mhm.
always the enunciating part. You just work on it every day. And I noticed up that I'm like a gas tank. Like beginning of the day, I'm full.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, if I talk normally, I might be done about 5 o'clock or so, and you'll hear my words slur a little bit, and you can hear my voice get a little bit. The volume will go down; it'll just get weaker,
Yeah.
and I just learned to control that day by day. I didn't speak at all until I'm speaking to you tonight.
Uh-huh. So you made sure that the battery was full when we got together.
Yes.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gasiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Recovery After Stroke podcast. If you are a stroke survivor with a story to share about your stroke experience, come join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do to qualify is be a stroke survivor who wants to share your story in the hope that it will help somebody else who's going through something similar. If you are a researcher who wants to share the findings of a recent study, or you are looking to recruit people into your studies, you may also wish to reach out and be a guest on my show. If you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors to recover, there is also a path for you to join me on the show for a sponsored episode. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the form explaining briefly which category you belong to, and I will respond with more details about how we can connect via Zoom. Now, this is episode 268, and my guest today is Eric Jackson, who experienced an ischemic stroke 10 years ago. And amongst overcoming the physical deficits, he has also had to overcome aphasia. Now, in this discussion, Eric demonstrates how far stroke survivors can come after a decade of recovery, and Eric does a lovely job of explaining how he still needs to manage his deficits and energy levels. Eric Jackson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Bill. Been looking forward to this all week.
Well, I'll be looking forward to having you as well. Thank you so much for deciding to connect and to be on the show. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
It was March of 2013. I was watching NCAA tournament basketball Final Four, and I went to the bathroom, and just when I was about to come out, I started throwing up,
Hmm.
and um, did not know what it was. Initially, I thought it was food poisoning, and even though I'd never had food poisoning before, after I stopped doing that, I just felt very, very weak. I think it's maybe about 3 minutes or less doing that. And I basically crawled to bed and went to sleep that night. It wasn't until the next morning when I rolled out of bed and I put my feet to the ground and I realized that my strength and balance was not there. And then when I finally stood up, I remember just like taking steps to my left because my whole right side, I had no balance, no strength, no nothing. And I tried to just talk, and I never lost what I wanted to say. You just couldn't understand it. And now this is the part where I've told some people I haven't, but I did not go to the ER right away.
That's
I
okay.
was
You're very. It's a very common thing. You're very normal. It's what most of us did because we're working out in our minds that it's anything but something really, really serious.
I, I I'll attest to that.
Yeah.
I didn't know really what it was. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe the next day it will go away. And of course, the next day it didn't go away. And I found it was about 36 hours until I actually went to the ER. And another check on the list, I drove myself to the ER. And I know I shouldn't have done that, but
We know that now, but yeah,
I
at the
know that now,
time,
yes.
it was
Um,
efficient, it was easy. You didn't have to ring anybody, you didn't have to pay for an ambulance. Makes
yes.
sense.
And not that it makes a difference, but the hospital I went to, it might be a mile and a half from my house, but I know that that makes no difference.
Yeah.
But uh, when I finally got there, speaking to the check-in woman, and I tried to tell exactly what was happening, and she was great because somehow she pretty much deciphered, you know, what I said, and so I got admitted. They did a whole bunch of tests. I remember I got there early morning, 8 o'clock or so, and like I said, they did a bunch of tests. Doctors came back, and he just said to me, "You had a stroke," and I really had no reaction whatsoever. Um, I just remember him telling me that we're going to do some more tests, which we did, and it was about say three or no, let's say about 4 o'clock when everything ended, and turns out that I was also diagnosed with diabetes, which I probably had maybe a year or two before. I had the neuropathy in my foot, but never got it checked out. Didn't think it was serious. But I remember him saying that we can do more tests now, or you can come back tomorrow and we can continue the test. And stubborn me, that's all I needed to hear. So I went home.
Wow.
Uh, Came back the next day, continued the test, and but everything as far as myself having a stroke, I mean, I was overweight, I had high cholesterol, I had high blood pressure, so you can say something was going to happen. It just happened to be that.
I'm curious about that. When they diagnosed the stroke, what condition were you in? And they said you can go home if you need. I don't understand that. If they've, what type of stroke was it?
Um, Ischemic stroke, blood blood clot to the head, and I agree with you, Bill. I mean, when he said those magic words, everything else did not matter to me because I was there for about 8 hours ago. I've never ever been as a patient in the hospital, so I guess
Mm,
8 hours was enough for me.
mm,
But yeah, my mindset was there, but I think getting home and going back the next day was, in my mind, better for me, even though it probably wasn't better for me.
yeah.
But I
And then
I
how did
remember
they treat it? How did they treat it? Did they get rid of the clot? What happened to the clot?
I forget the drug when
Uh,
you do
TPA.
I didn't yeah, I didn't get that because like I said, I was about 36 hours
Mm-hmm,
before after I had my stroke. I don't know if you can still get that admitted then,
mm-hmm.
but that did not come up at all. Um, just uh, just all the tests, and um, my blood pressure was. I remember looking at my blood pressure, and it was like 190 over like 110. And when I was released, it went down to like 170 over um, maybe 90 or so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know the indication of, okay, he doesn't have to stay overnight
Yeah,
to continue to test now, but that's what happened.
that's so strange. So when you were going to the toilet, did you have nausea? Did you feel nauseated, or were you at the toilet to do what you had to do, and then all of a sudden you just out of nowhere threw up? How did that happen?
The latter.
Uh-huh.
I was basically about to exit the bathroom, and then I got the feeling, and I
Mm-hmm.
just went back to the toilet, started throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, before that, no nauseous, no nothing,
Mm.
no indication whatsoever until that exact moment.
Were you living at home with somebody when that happened?
No, I was living alone, same as right now, but
Uh-huh.
I was living alone. Nobody was with me at the time.
Nobody to bug you and get you to hospital sooner.
Exactly. They should have been there.
Fair enough. What kind of work were you doing?
Well, March of 2013, the year before, uh, May of 2012, I was working for Time Warner Cable. We got laid off at that time. So pretty much took off the summer. I remember saying I'm going to take my severance package and enjoy my summer. The winter, not so much. But then the next spring in March, that's when it happened. So I was unemployed at the time.
Okay. So you've gone to hospital, they've sent you home, you went back the next day for tests. Did those tests reveal anything that required you to have a hospital stay?
Uh, you know what? I'm going to say no because I was there all day.
Uh-huh.
And I think at the end of the day, they were already setting up my physical therapy along with my speech therapy. And that started, if that was like, say, a Monday, that started maybe 2 days later. And um, of course, the medication that I was going to take was also going to be started that same day as well.
So you're going now, it's the second day, they've set up your physical therapy and your speech therapy. Which physical deficits did you have? What did you have to overcome?
My whole right side was gone as far as any type of balance, strength. So that was one as far as the physical part. Nothing on my left side, just affected my right side, and then also my speech. It was, off not as good as it is right now. I still don't think it's that good, but the speech therapy was back to square one. It was all the exercises that you probably
Mm.
did as a child, and I couldn't do it then. So it was going to be interesting to attempt it then. But those two things were the affected things I had to rehab.
How did you get to and back home from the hospital after this second visit? Did you have to
Oh,
drive again?
I was hoping you're going to skip that. Um, I did drive that second day. I did drive there, and I did drive back.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's amazing that they left it up to you. I get it that, you've had a stroke, you don't understand the seriousness of it. All of those things are quite common and they're very normal. And it's still shocking to hear that I drove myself to the hospital for one of the incidents that I had as well. So
Yeah,
it's not
more
like,
than one.
yeah, I don't know about, like, I know that that happens. What's interesting is that the hospital and the doctors just kind of allowed it to happen as well. They just went along with it. After somebody has
Yeah.
presented with a stroke, they sent you home, and then they said just come back tomorrow. And they didn't ask you how you were going to do that. They clearly knew you had deficits.
More or less, treated like I had a broken arm,
Yeah.
not a stroke. Uh, you know what? It's I think what kills that is what I actually did,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have to do that. That was all me. That was
Mm.
just stubborn me
Mm.
as far as to do what I should do, and I didn't.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, it worked out well. You got to the hospital twice. And how long did you stay in rehab?
Well, what happened first was, like I said, I wasn't working at the time. It took me about 2 or 3 days to get my insurance okay to do rehab. And speech and physical therapy both started, I think, the same day. I remember doing physical therapy in the morning, and luckily, speech was in the next building, which was like, 200 feet over, and I walked to do speech therapy. And I did both of them for, I'm going to say, about 2 months, and that's when my insurance ran out.
Mm.
But at that time, what I was doing for physical therapy was basically all the computer exercises as far as the balancing, and not much walking, but more balancing exercises. And after 2 months of that, not that I felt, great to walk around, but I felt enough to continue what I wanted to do. As far as speech therapy, with the exercises, as far as even Google Voice, and a lot of tongue twisters,
Mm.
a lot of words with the same letter. And I remember telling her at the beginning of each exercise, like I said, I couldn't do this before. I don't know how good I'm going to do this now. But after the speech therapy ended, my thought process would, I'll just get a newspaper or a magazine and I just read out loud. And that was my speech therapy. And as far as my physical therapy, I went to a community college which had a track, and I would just one lap around the track, and it would take me about maybe 12 minutes to finish. I was tired, I was sweating,
Mm.
but my mindset was one day at a time. I'm going to do this one day at a time. And so both speech therapy and physical therapy. Lucky it was a springtime, and I had all summer to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what I did. Everything was try to get better every day, and I think that I did that during my self therapy, if you will.
It sounds like you did a fantastic job. You're so matter of fact. This happened, I'm going to do that. That happened, I'm going to do this. This has gone away, I'm going to do this to fix it. Um, was anyone supporting you? Were you being guided by anyone? How were you going through this? Was it alone?
There, nobody was necessarily guiding me, but I did have friends that I eventually told that, definitely, you know, a good support system.
Mm-hmm.
It would be more or less, I would tell them what I'm doing, and I might talk to them the end of the day, and they said, "Did you do this? Did you do that?" And I said, "Yes." Um, and that's sort of how I kind of roll anyway. But I mean, once I told my uncle and aunt who live like 2 miles down the road, and certain friends that I told, they definitely chimed in on me. They didn't forget about me. I didn't tell 100 people, but
Mm.
a select few. But I had a good support system.
The timing, as far as your work was concerned, seemed to be decent. Where you weren't working, you had received a severance package, so now you're got time to yourself. So that came in at the right time.
It did.
Did you eventually move through the recovery and get to a stage where you started to reconsider work and going back to work? What happened after the therapy?
Well, what happened? I'm gonna say it was about maybe 2 years as far as my therapy. And I had, I remember I had an appointment with my cardiologist, and I remember telling him that I'd like to go back to work. And because I didn't know if there were any rules or anything like that as far as what to do. And he just turned to me and he said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel fine." He said, I'll write you a little note that you're good to go, but you have to promise me that you work part-time." So that was a deal. So that's what I did. There's an enterprise rent a car right down the street for me. They advertise a job, basically a prep job to get the cars ready, prep for renting. And I applied, I got the job, and it was about 20 hours a week. And of course, before that, I'm still on SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. It worked out with my income requirements. And so that was my first job um, from full-time Time Warner. It was about a 3 year gap. But you know, you do enough and you think that you can do something else. And you know, waking up and doing your rehab, that takes about, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then you have the whole rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I did have the appointment with my cardiologist, and he said, how do you feel? And so I said, I feel fine. And that was the go for me.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It sounds like you did give it plenty of time to get back to work. 3 years of looking after yourself and getting yourself ready and fit and overcoming your deficits. How long did you feel like your speech deficit was way better than what it began? So you would have been feeling like you weren't communicating well, but at some stage you might have felt, I'm communicating well now. How long did it elapsed until you got to that stage?
When I first started at Enterprise, I think I learned how to control my speech. What I would do and what I do try to do still now is to talk slower than I usually did. So that way I can enunciate better. And you don't say all the time, I'm sorry, what did you say? So I made sure that I constantly tried to talk slow, enunciate the words. And at the time, or maybe right after that, I would speak to somebody. And when I say I actually had a stroke and it affected my speech, they said, I can see that a little bit, but I've thought maybe you just had an accent or an accent or something. They wouldn't know what happened until I told them. And that's still today the best compliment when they say, I wouldn't even guess that you had a stroke.
Yeah.
And that's the best compliment.
Yeah. When as you speak right now, what was the problem with the speech that you had? So some people haven't got the word, they have aphasia, for example. They haven't got the ability to make the word come out of their head, for example. There's a disconnect there between the mouth and the thought of the word. What was your specific problem with your speech?
Mine was just enunciating words. It could be the simplest words, and I might stutter, or it might take me 4 or 5 attempts to say. And that was my speech impediment, and it still is. That's another reason why I try to talk slow, because if I try to talk normally, I might not get my word out. And I never lost the fact of what I wanted to say. It was always the enunciating part. And you just work on it every day. And I noticed that I'm like a gas tank. Like beginning of the day, I'm full. At the end of the day, if I talk normally, I might be done about 5 o'clock or so. And you'll hear my words slur a little bit, and you can hear my voice get a little bit, the volume will go down, it'll just get weaker. And I just learned to control that day by day. I didn't speak at all until I'm speaking to you tonight.
So you made sure that the battery was full when we got together.
Yes.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Yes.
Fantastic, mate. Thank you. So this happened 10 years ago for you, and you're 10 years out. What is your right side like now? Are there any challenges with your physical, with the physical part of your body?
Well, now I gained, let's say, most of my strength back on my right side. When I was rehabbing, I would basically do all right side exercises. I wouldn't even use my left side. Did that for maybe about a year. And I remember one time I was feeling, pretty good, lost some weight. I knew I had some strength back. And I went to the bench and I put on I think I put 310 on there and put it up 3 times, and I was good. And I've never done that again. But that's probably where I left off, 10, 12 years ago. But now, I mean, walking, you can still see a slight limp when I do walk, but I'm comfortable in walking now. Um, it took me about a year to actually do stairs. I'm comfortable with that right now. But everything was with strength and balance, and still is. There are some times where I will pick up something with my right hand, still do a little shake. I still have spasticity in my walking and, certain tasks. But like for saving, I'll just do my left hand. I won't do my right hand at all. And you just learn to do that. But balance and strength was from the get go. That was what I had to deal with.
And is that energy battery also make your deficits worse at the end of the day for your right side? Do you also notice that your limp gets a little worse and your hand spasticity gets a little worse when you're out of energy?
I don't think physically, I don't think it really affects the end of the day, if you will. Um, Still my speech. And now I don't know if I should talk more during the day or keep doing what I'm doing. It's a hard balance, but I'm going to stay with keep what I'm doing. But as far as my balance and strength, when I do walk or I do work out, um, I still feel that my strength is almost all the way back, and I don't really worry about any deficits as far as physical deficits.
That's interesting. A lot of people will say that all their deficits get worse at the end of the day, and that's what I notice. But it's interesting that yours don't, and that's great that it doesn't. That
Maybe because I try not to work out maybe the beginning of the day, so maybe I don't notice it that much. Maybe it would if I, try to do a workout about 8 o'clock p.m. Maybe that will happen, but I make sure that either I'll work out in the morning or I might not work out that day. But I always try to do it at least before noon anyway.
Yeah. So today you've saved your voice for me, but what does that mean during the day? Does that mean you don't go to anywhere where you have to talk? You don't ring people? How do you avoid talking to people for the entire day to get to the end of the day and be fresh?
Well, today, Bill, I did not have to go out, go shopping, or meet with anybody, go to work. So when I woke up, I worked out. I did some things in my house. I was listening to music most of the day, and I said, I'm not. The only time I talked, I was texting you using Google Voice to certain people. But other than that, I said if I have to go about an hour, I'm going to save it all for Bill.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So what's life like now? It sounds like life's okay. Are you in a different job? Are you still doing the car preparation job? How did how did you move on for that after that first sort of 3 to 5 years?
Well, there have been jobs in between that. Just to fast forward to right now, I'm working at a rehabilitation hospital, front desk, and the reason why I'm there, it's the same hospital that I rehabbed at,
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 years ago at the gym. And uh, maybe last summer or so, I said, you know what? I just want to get my foot in the door. And I think the best way is to go to that rehabilitation hospital. And luckily, they're always hiring. And there was a job for advertised for the front desk. And, got the interview. And luckily, I got the job. Been there for about a year. And that's the best part as far as everybody's there. Well, not everybody, but when people are there to visit family or someone who is rehabbing there, I feel like I have a connection with them because I went through the same thing. It could be different. We do have a TBI ward, but they might be rehabbing a broken hip.
Mm-hmm.
But with whatever it might be, I feel like that I do have a connection with them. Every person, I don't say that, I had a stroke and we get
Mm-hmm.
to a conversation, but there are some that I do, and just a conversation back and forth, whether what they went through or what their family members are going through, it's the best part of the day, and it kind of leaned me toward being more of a stroke advocate or a heart disease or TBI advocate. And so that's what I'm doing now, about 20, 25 hours a week. I work there tomorrow morning, and that is my path right now.
That's a good path. The good thing about that is that if you do get involved in a conversation with somebody and you do mention the fact that you had a stroke and you do mention the fact that it was 10 years ago, what I hope it does is provide hope for the family or for the person that there is this possibility of progression and for
Yes,
things to improve, even though uh, their loved one may have had a different stroke or may have a different deficit or whatever it is. At least it offers some hope that here is Eric. He had a stroke when he was 44, and then he had some tough times. He had to overcome certain deficits and challenges, and then 10 years later, here he is in a position where he's working in a space which is important to him, and the evolution of stroke has this story that it can show and can tell people that you can fight for your ability to get back to work, to life, to have something meaningful in your day. And it can look however you want it to look, and you can choose like you've chosen.
agree with everything you said, Bill.
Yeah, that's a great thing. And it does create connection, and because you understand and it has you're able to have empathy and you're able to know what people are going through and what might be on their mind and what might be troubling them. And
Yes,
that's an excellent uh, position for you to be in right at the front door when you're almost the first person that they see when,
I am the first person.
yeah,
I
there
am
you
the
go.
first person they see when they walk into the hospital,
Yeah.
and it's a good
And
thing.
probably the last person on the way out as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the organization that you work with, did you use that story to help get you the job? Did you say, by the way, do you know that I was a patient here? And I think you guys are fantastic and all that type of thing.
That did come up. What happened is I was in a waiting room. At the time was maybe a small space, maybe 2 or 3 chairs. It's improved now, but I was just waiting for my contact to come out. And what happened is the gentleman who was the manager of the gym that I rehabilitated at, he walked out because he was, I think it was the person who was taking over his job. He was just walking around the hospital. So I was talking to him for a little bit, and as I was talking to him, my contact walked out. And so I'm saying, well, she is seeing me with talking with the manager of the gym, so he must know him somehow. So we went back, we interviewed. The interview was fine, and then um, two things. I said, well, I did work out at the second floor gym to rehabilitate it, and then my ace in the hole is my uncle has been volunteering there for about 19 years.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, you might know my uncle." And she goes, "Oh, who is it?" And I said, "It's Carl." Then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh my God, Carl, we love Carl, this and that." And in my mind I said, "This is over with. I pretty much got the job." And
Perfect. I would use that too,
yeah.
especially if Uncle Carl was a good person to suggest and he wasn't being a pain in the butt and giving people
Oh
a hard
yes.
time.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, you have to distance yourself from him, but good on him.
Never.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that's the beauty of it, right? You can still be yourself. You can still find a way to get over the line, to achieve your goals, to, you
Yes.
know, to do your thing. So what's the plan? Is there, do you see another role for yourself in that organization at some stage, or are you just happy doing what you're doing?
I initially, when I got the job, I said I would like to, maybe have another job in due time with them as maybe some type of a speaker or just an advocate for for stroke itself. What I have done is I did speak once at they have a activity night during I think it's 6:30 to 7:30, and I met the one who runs who is in charge of activities, and I asked him, can I speak one night where the TBI patients are there? Usually it's a game night, they're playing Yahtzee or whatever like that. So one night I went up there, spoke for about 10 minutes, and everybody seemed very pleased. I haven't done it again yet, but that's something on the lines that I'd like to do. And also, the same hospital that I initially went to when I had my stroke, and I did participate in stroke meetings right after my stroke when I had it. They discontinued it for whatever reason, whether it was money or participation, but uh, they have I think next week they're doing the groups again, and on Thursday, I think it was Thursday, um, I'm going to participate again in a stroke meeting there, and so again, get the ball rolling and doing something. And even for your podcast, I think I just went online and just typed stroke podcast, and yours came up, and submitted my information, and you got back to me, and I was pretty shocked, and I said I'm definitely doing this once we can get a time down. And so bits and pieces like that as far as what my path I think I want to be as far as what I'm going to do in due time.
So it sounds like you've decided to make a point of helping out in that area, advocating, sharing your
Yes.
story. What are the benefits of sharing your story? What do you feel is the reason why people should share their stroke story?
Maybe the number one reason is help and hope. Like you said, people like hearing stories,
Mm.
and when they do hear a particular story, it might help someone. It might not help them, but maybe they'll tell
Mm,
somebody. It might help another person. And just that avalanche effect, that's what I hope I'm going to do as far as to have my story out. And I would love for, hundreds of people and, the next couple of days to come to me and said, well, I heard your story. I heard your journey.
mm,
And that's my mindset right now. It's great to tell my story after 10 years. I figure if I can make it 10 years, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I definitely have an experience for 10 years of being a stroke survivor.
yeah.
So I want to tell that story, and I want to help as many people as possible, and then I want them to, have that in their mind that I can do this too, or maybe their brother or sister, whoever it is, can do that
Mm,
as
mm,
well.
mm. Yeah, you're definitely an expert after 10 years. You're the expert of your own recovery. Absolutely.
Yes,
There's
yes,
no doubt about it. Your experience, you've lived with yourself for 10 years, so you know what it's like, and you can speak on that. And you're a very credible person to have that platform, to be able to stand in front of people. And what's interesting is that many stroke survivors who come on the podcast tell me that they get something out of it. They feel good about sharing their story. It helps to get them something off their chest. But then what's
yes,
really interesting, Eric, is I get a lot of people contacting me through the YouTube channel or through my website or through Instagram or social media saying, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thanks for the episode that really helped me. And I listened to 260 episodes so far, and they don't they're not all different. They're very, very similar, but every person is different. Every person's unique experience offers something different for every person. So the more people we can get onto a podcast, the more people who share their story, it doesn't matter how minor, major, where the stroke was, what it affected, the more chance that we have of somebody out there finding the one that they resonate with and then going, that explains it. Or, oh, okay,
yes,
I appreciate that. Or, okay, if he can be like that, I can be like that. I don't know the type of people who look up to me. I don't know the demographic of people who relate to me, but hopefully I found the demographic of people that will relate to you, and then they'll come there and they'll go, wow, Eric's my kind of guy. I can be like Eric, and I'm going to follow his example and then take my recovery to the next level by going to the gym every day
yes.
in the morning so that I'm not really tired at the end of the day, or I'm going to save my voice for special occasions.
Yes.
That's a great thing. I mean, I never thought about it like that, but I used to save myself for special occasions too, usually to go to a party or whatever. But I
Yes.
would give myself time the next day. So
Okay.
if I had a party to go to, I would go about my business as normal, and then we'd get to the party, and then the next day I would have nothing to do, so that I didn't have to be hungover. Not that I drank, but like
Yes.
stroke hungover,
Sure.
and then get through my day.
Yes. I
So
actually I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
no, I was going to say, so that was my strategy to make sure that I got there, and I was uh I I, I was able to fully participate.
Yes. Actually, when I did find your podcast, I listened to, I don't know if it was last week's or maybe 2 weeks ago, but I think his name was Chris. He was the one that got into a car accident in Princeton,
Yeah,
New Jersey.
yeah,
And I listened to what he went through as far as I'm not going to get into it, but the whole skull thing, and he was in a coma, and then graduated high school, and then
mm,
graduated college, and got two degrees.
mm,
And I'm listening to it, so I said, I can't follow this. This guy's amazing as far as
yeah,
what he did. But every TBI is different, every rehab is so unique that like I said, it's not a broken arm. There's no formula for it. And once you get your groove as far as what to do, and it might not be, a medical journal that you look through that does the trick. It might be your own little thing combined with, a lot of knowledge that you have.
Mm.
And what Chris is, I thought was amazing. And every day you just learned how to deal with the rehab, and hopefully you get better.
Yeah. Christopher Dietrich, he was episode 260, and he didn't have a stroke, but he had a car accident, which gave
Yes.
him a traumatic brain injury. But
Yes.
there's a lot of similarities between recovery from a traumatic brain injury and stroke. It's the same
Yes.
kind of challenges people face. And yeah, and what was interesting about Chris is that he decided that he was going to leave his home country and go overseas and live overseas.
Right.
And when I remember when I was interviewing him, I said, "You went on your own." I kind of felt a little bit like, "Wow, that's a big deal that you were unwell, but nonetheless you went overseas and he went and got a job and he did all
Yes.
the things that he was going to do." He made it sound so effortless. I know it wasn't, but he made it sound so effortless.
He
It
did.
was,
He did.
yeah. But I definitely know it wasn't. I don't want people who are listening who go back and watch episode 260 to feel like he didn't have anything wrong with him or everything was easy. It wasn't. But that's how he reflects on it. He reflects on it like it was nothing.
I was just more impressed than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a great guy. He contacted me for the same reason, right? He said that it's time for him to start sharing his story and it's time for him to start telling people about uh, what he went through and what he overcome and what's possible. And that's perfect. He was 18 when it
Yes.
happened to him. He was
Yes.
18. Uh, so he missed out on a lot of those parts of, the early 20s when
Right.
we're running amok and enjoying life to the full. He missed out on a lot of that, but it didn't get in the way. It still seemed like he went out of his way to get to the point where he was going to do everything that
Right.
that was on his mind that he needed to get done.
It was a great
Um,
story.
yeah. I hope, well, clearly it inspired you. And I know there was another comment about it as well on the YouTube channel. And I imagine that for every comment that people make, I imagine there's another 10 or 20 comments that people don't make who feel the same way. And that's
Yes.
the reason why the podcast is so great, because it's not essential that you comment. But I know that just by the law of averages, when people are commenting, one or two people, I know that there is many, many, many others that are getting positively impacted. Now, if
Sure.
anyone's listening to this episode and they are getting positively impacted and they love this story from Eric, leave a comment in the YouTube comments. Let us know. Uh, let's leave more than 2 comments on this episode this time. That'll be fantastic.
And if
And
and if you want to bash me about the first couple of days, go right ahead. I've been through it before.
the first couple of days,
Oh, it's as far as what I did, what what
yeah,
what not to do.
yeah. Well, you did all the wrong things, but you didn't know they were the wrong things.
Well, no, that's not what some people said.
They said you should have done better.
Oh, that they said you should have went immediately. You should have
Yeah,
called 911, and
yeah,
I didn't say anything because they weren't wrong.
yeah.
But just sat there and took it.
How do
Just
you know? How do you know? I got told the same thing. You shouldn't have driven here. I know, but I had a stroke. But I'm not thinking clearly.
right.
All I know is I need help. I don't know how I'm going to get help. All I know is I
Yes,
need help, and I'm gonna go where the help is.
exactly. Yes.
I drive about. I reckon I drove about in miles. I think I drove about 3 or 4 miles to the hospital as well.
Okay.
I knew where it was. I can't remember getting there. I can't remember how I got there. I don't know. There's nothing in my memory about how I actually drove my car to the hospital. I know that I
Okay.
got there. I know where I parked. I parked in an illegal parking zone. I called my wife. I walked in. I told them I was having a stroke. They didn't believe me. I argued with them. I really am.
Hmm.
I gave them my name. They finally looked up my history, and then they admitted me. It was the third bleed that I was having. And but I can't remember how I got there. And
Okay.
I'm, it's not the right thing, but it worked out, and I'm glad that it worked out, and I'm glad I didn't hurt anyone or make. But it's not what I was thinking at the time. I wasn't thinking of anything like that.
Yes. I mean, I can immediately jump to, hey, it's 10 years later. I'm here.
Hmm.
Forget what happened the first, week or
Yeah.
two. It's like, I'm here.
Yep. That's it.
And and
Yep.
hopefully I can, like, change their mindset, and they could agree with me, and then we can go on from there.
Yeah. It worked out. What they say, I think the people who say that are concerned about our well-being and other people's well-being.
Sure, sure.
Wow, you could have hurt yourself. I know I could have, but I didn't. Um,
Yes.
let's move on.
That's exactly my attitude.
Yeah,
Whether they agree with it or not, that exactly it.
yeah. And in the same position, what's strange is many people make the same decision. The amount of stroke survivors that I've spoken to who said they drove themselves to hospital, they didn't
Mm,
want to call an ambulance, they didn't think it was that serious. Well, how could you? Nobody's expecting to have a stroke.
right. I mean, I didn't know if it was an actual stroke until the doctor
Yeah,
told me.
yeah.
So I remember telling a friend of mine, because I was going to travel to New Jersey that weekend just to visit, and I remember him telling that I probably just said I'm not feeling too good,
Mm,
um, because I didn't know it was an actual stroke then.
mm, mm.
But yeah, I didn't know until the doctor told me, and then that's when everything started.
So now, how about all the other underlying causes? Has everything settled down? The diabetes, the high blood pressure. Where are all your other little things at now? Where are they at?
Well, when I had my stroke, I was about 270 pounds.
Uh huh.
Right now, I just weighed myself yesterday. 218 pounds. So
Okay.
we so we got that under control, and that's the lowest weight that I've been since my sophomore year in high school, I believe. So check that off, and I'm gonna keep that up.
Yeah.
My blood pressure, like I said, it was like 190 over 120 as I was peaking at the machine while I was lying down. Today, I'm still on blood pressure medication, but it's constantly like 120 over 80.
Mm-hmm.
So got that checked off. And my diabetes, I remember my first A1C check was I think it was 11 or so, and now it's right at 7. I'm having trouble getting it below 7 because I know that I cheat too much. But but from 11 down to 7, uh that's a great accomplishment.
That's a
And
big
i
deal.
don't have i don't have any physical effects from having type 2 diabetes. And the weight loss definitely helped.
Yeah.
My cholesterol check from my last blood work about 6 months ago, um, that was actually, cholesterol is very good. I mean, right now I don't eat many fried foods at all, every once in a blue moon. So all the factors of a stroke, as far as being obese, having high blood pressure, and having high cholesterol, I definitely made sure I took care of them.
They're all down.
Yes.
The weight loss is definitely making a massive difference in every
Oh yes.
part of your
Yes.
life. How you feel specifically, and then also how it impacts your body and how it impacts the blood sugar levels. Going to the gym is also helping your blood sugar levels because
Yes.
you're pumping iron, you're getting all of that sugar, all that energy out of your body, and the body doesn't have to work so hard to break it down and process it.
Yes.
So that's all really beneficial. And you lost a significant amount of weight. You must feel lighter on your feet and more comfortable in in yourself?
Yeah, that felt great. Our About I think it's 2 years ago, we I had my 30th high school reunion, and everybody said that I look great, and I'm thinking I was the same way I was in high school 30 years ago. Not
Mm,
too many people can say that,
mm,
and that was 2 years ago, and I think I might have like stooped off 5 pounds since then.
mm.
So I definitely have a formula as far as my diet and working out that I'm gonna stick with. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Is that the keys of your success? Just being really vigilant about your process, the way that you go about your day,
Yes,
looking after yourself and everything.
yes. I mean, it's like, don't get me wrong, Bill. I'll cheat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's gonna, sometimes there'll be that Snickers bar, and I have to have it.
Yeah.
Um, but like this past week, I think I had like 3 consecutive days where I didn't snack, I didn't eat late, and everything contributed. I think I lost maybe like 3 pounds in 3 days. And with me, the thing is, don't get cocky and go out and get 5 slices of pizza and eat that. And
Mm.
um, so that's the balance. I mean, I will more days out of the week if I do well. I'm fine with that. I don't have to have everything written down and
Yeah.
7 days a week do this and do that. I mean I can tell, and I'll always tell, even with my clothes I can tell, and it's a good barometer because I had to give away most of my clothes because they were too big,
Yeah.
and I had to buy all new clothes to fit the new me, and it was a good thing. That's a good problem to have, I
That's a
think.
great problem to have. So Snickers is your vice, huh? If you come across a Snickers bar on a Saturday, which is your day off, you have to have it.
Well, vices. If I stay in the house, because I don't buy like sweets for the most part.
Yeah.
But if I'm in the grocery store and I go down, the wrong aisle, it'll
Yeah.
be bad.
Yeah.
That's a thing. It's
Yeah.
I try not to go someplace to buy something that might be that might offset the diet. I try to eat what's in house, and if
Yeah.
if I if I stick with that, I'll be okay.
Yeah. I like that. Don't bring it home, therefore you can't eat it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember one of my worst things that I used to do as far as nutrition goes, which I mean, I don't think it even comes under the word nutrition, is I used to love eating a Mars bar and have a can of Coca Cola at the same time.
Mm.
I'm not sure. I think that that would be enough sugar to get me through the next 3 months these days. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have anywhere near that sugar, that amount of sugar. I was so addicted. But you think about, right, a Mars bar, it must have 50 or 60 grams of sugar in it, and then a can of Coke has
Probably.
the same amount. And I
Yeah.
would use the can of Coke to wash down the Mars bar and, and all the stickiness and all that stuff. It was terrible, but amazing. It was
Yeah,
amazing. Oh my gosh, it used to be my daily thing. But of course, I would never do that now. I can't remember the last time I ate a Mars bar, and
right.
I definitely don't think that I've had a can of Coke, man, for 3 years more,
Great.
or any soda for that matter, any soda for at least 3 years. And the last time I
Great.
had soda, even if it was 3 years ago, I probably only had a very small amount, 100 ml or something, just for
Right.
who knows, whatever reason, because it was there and it was my day off or something like that. And as far as 5 slices of pizza, I remember the old days when I would eat an entire pizza. I'm
See,
not.
I'm glad you said that and not me.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Oh man, I would eat one entire big massive pizza all for myself. I'd go buy one and just smash it. And now there's no way I could eat that much pizza. I don't
Uh,
understand where it used to go, Eric. I don't know where it went.
yeah, that I think that wasn't in my process, but my process was I know
Mm,
where I'm going. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to eat it, and then
mm,
the next day I'll be better.
Yeah. I was always worse the next day, but I never connected the two. I never knew that the next day after eating something that I shouldn't have eaten was similar to a hangover from alcohol. I used to have
Okay.
after effects the day after. I'd be bloated. I wouldn't feel well. I was never
Yes.
very overweight. I was never above 210 pounds. Never.
Okay.
But at my my biggest weight, I was probably about 210 pounds. So, that was maybe my biggest weight ever.
Right.
So I was wondering whether or not you're not comfortable, whether you're able to share about what has stroke taught you.
Oh, well, 10 years ago, it taught me that it really taught me now I have something to do every day. Maybe it wasn't like that before. Very almost boring. Go to work, come home, do whatever. Now it's wake up and I have to rehab. I want to get back to whatever normalcy is that most people, I guess, complain about. And so that was my mindset for a couple of years. Um, I see people, run up the stairs, and I said, well, I'd like to do that in due time. And I would see someone maybe run across the street, and I would say I would like to do that, someday. So I had things to accomplish that I never thought of before the stroke. So it was more or less a purpose of starting over again, square one. I'm a little kid trying to walk again. I'm trying to speak again. That's where my mindset was, and it still is today because I'd like to do. I don't know what I can do to get my speech better, but maybe I'll find out. And as far as maybe getting more strength back in my right side, to do more exercises. Maybe I'm gonna start yoga actually, and just to see if I can even improve on what I am right now. So even 10 years later, it's something to do.
Wow,
I just don't wake up and do the normal things. It's always something to do.
that's fantastic. So this is a similar kind of question, but it's different in that what what would you say to somebody that's listening to this episode who has just been through stroke, who's going through it now? Um, what would you say to them if they came across you and you could tell they were doing it hard and doing it tough?
Well, like I said, every rehab process is different. It's unique. Everyone has their own rehab process, and you have to think that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to be a-okay 3 days later. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of patience. And if you can instill that, in you, as long as you do what you want to do every day as far as rehab, time is going to tell you a lot of things. And after a certain time, you're going, hopefully you're going to improve. And if you're going to improve, that is going to green light you to do even more. And it's just going to, and that's was my mindset every day, every week, every month. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do, and it's going to take time. And again, marathon, not a sprint. Every
Yes.
every day, have your support system with you, and it's difficult, but don't give up. I
Yeah.
mean, definitely don't give up.
It sounds like you never had a deadline on, I'm going to, for example, run up the stairs by next week. It sounds like you never had a deadline. It sounds like you always had a goal and that you were just working towards it and you would give it a try. And then if you didn't succeed, then you would just work towards it and give it another try. Is that accurate? Is that how it was?
That's definitely accurate. What happened is going back to the enterprise job. Sometimes we'll deliver cars to a certain building, and I would work with a partner and then realize that we have to go up a flight of steps, and I would go, oh wow, I don't know if I can do that. As long as there was a railing, I can do it. And so 20 steps went up, used a railing, I was okay. And I'm just thinking, hopefully maybe in a month or so, I can go up the steps without the railing, just go very slow, not trip. And that's exactly what happened. And down the stairs was even worse, but the same thing. Um, it's a challenge to me. That's what it was. As far as up the steps, down the steps, hills, um, stop and starting to maneuver yourself. It was all a challenge. It's something I didn't have back then, but I just said in time I will. And yes, I never had a deadline for something. I just said it will come in time.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, thank you so much for reaching out and deciding to share your story and start being an advocate for stroke and for offering hope to other stroke survivors. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed your story and I wish you well with everything going forward.
Thank you very much, Bill. I mean, I woke up and I said, I'm looking forward to this. And I had a great time. And it's very therapeutic to tell your story. And I definitely hope people watch. And hopefully, if I can reach one person, that's good enough for me.
Absolutely, man. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. As always, to learn more about my guests, including links to their social media and other pages, and to download a full transcript of the entire interview, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. Thank you to all those people who have already left a review. It means the world to me, and you are helping others in need of this type of content to find it easier, and that is making their stroke recovery just that little bit better. If you haven't left a review and would like to, the best way to do that is to leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you on iTunes and Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video, like the episode, and to get the notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show on the platform of your choice. Thank you again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gasiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.